Santiago Canyon College is an innovative learning community in Orange, California, with more than 260 certificate and degree programs. Santiago Canyon College is a proud sponsor of community programming and OC World.
OC World is made possible by the generous contributions of Marisla Foundation, Keith and Judy Swain Family Foundation, Wells Fargo Bank, the University of California, Irvine, Orange County Community Foundation, Farmers and Merchants Bank, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Richard Reisman is arguably one of the most successful publishers in Orange County's history. But while other legacy print publications have struggled to survive, the OCBJ has thrived, mostly because, according to Reisman, it never followed the media pack. Take, for example, the rush by almost all print publications for digital dollars. Not the OCBJ. Reisman has a lot more to say about the business of print media, as well as the future of journalism. But first, who is Richard Reisman, and how did he get involved in publishing? Richard, one of the things that really engaged me about your background was that you didn't necessarily become a journalist per se. You sort of kind of stepped quickly into the business side of journalism. That's my read on it. And if I'm not correct, you let me know, yeah? Okay. But if that's the truth, if you kind of stepped into the business side early on in your career, what was it about the business side of media that interested you?
Yeah, I like the question. I am my father's son. My dad was an elected official after being a school teacher. He actually spent his career teaching at Harlem, and then he became equivalent to the mayor in New York State, the title supervisor, a full-time executive of the township I grew up in. And so we didn't talk business around our dinner table. Our neighbors, given that he was a school teacher with a bunch of kids, were taxi drivers, bartenders. I think my parents paid $13,000 for their home. So I went that track. I went to George Washington University Law School because it was in DC. And I went to work for a law firm in DC where I was appointed special counsel to the House Ethics Committee, secondary to the partner that had a high profile. And I loved that. Because of personal circumstances, I moved to the West Coast and couldn't find a practice like that and was really at a loss. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided to retool after practicing law here for 2 years, after practicing law in DC, and went to UCLA Business School. A very great man named Al Osborne, who was the associate dean of the business school at a very young age, was at the admittee weekend when I was in San Francisco, and I met him, and I said, I like this guy, and I want to take his class and get to know him better. And he was very accomplished. He was on the board of Times Mirror, among other organizations, so when he took me under his wing and brainstormed with me of what I might find interesting, he'd say healthcare, high tech, real estate, and I just didn't get excited. But when he said media, and it wasn't surprising given that he served on the board of Times Mirror, I said, wow, that sounds interesting. It involves public policy, it involves the community, and it had I was a marketing major, but I didn't really want to sell dry salad dressing. It just didn't seem I love my daughter to death. She wanted to be president of the United States, and I teased her, so you're selling margarine, almost. It didn't excite me to sell just anything, but selling something that I thought served a role in our community, in our democracy, and it also helped smaller, it helped companies, businesses to find markets. And so that just seemed like it's almost like a marketing consultant. So it's like a double business, and I just found that really interesting. And I ended up working for Times Mirror in a position one level higher than the normal starting. Out of business school, typically you're an analyst, but I started as a manager because I came highly recommended by Dean Al Osborne, to whom I am eternally grateful.
Reisman eventually made his way to the Orange County Business Journal, where in 1990 he became publisher and CEO of the then 5-year-old print weekly. The Orange County Business Journal today covers mostly news on Orange County companies, industries, and business leaders. According to its 2023 Media Kit, the OCBJ has a weekly circulation of 16,000 plus readers and 50,000 daily opt-in online subscribers. It also publishes special reports and lists, custom content from industry experts, and produces several business awards events throughout the year. Let's bring it down to Orange County. The role of media in Orange County. Can you talk a little bit about the influence of media and why it is so significant or important to have a robust media?
Well, I think it's self-evident why it would be a good idea to have a robust media. It's almost navel-gazing for us to talk about what isn't. I like Ron Hasse a lot. I respect him. He operates under tremendous burden of having limited resources, which is primarily a reflection of the industry, which is in severe secular decline. I think I would guess that advertising revenue for daily newspapers is probably down well over 80%. It may be approaching 90% from its peak. It's hard to pay for journalists. So we don't have very many. And the Orange County Business Journal thrives, but we're not a watchdog publication. We're not intended to be that. We're like the high school newspaper for the kids who run Orange County, and I'm proud of that. We serve an important function of connecting people. That's what we do, and not just business people, but I think if you run a university, if you run a hospital, if you're an elected official, if you run a philanthropy, an arts organization, you are going to read the Orange County Business Journal to see what the other people are doing, and to both serve a utility function for them, that they want to meet people that are in their cohort. It may make their organization better. It may be just a psychic reward of knowing what's going on with other people that they feel are similar to themselves, so their cohort.
This is kind of a two-part question. Number one is, it's a very simple answer. Do you consider the Orange County Business Journal a newspaper or a magazine?
I don't consider it anything. It's the high school media for the kids who run Orange County. I don't use, it could be a rag, it could be a newspaper, a magazine, a journal, no preference.
Okay. And then secondly, in an interview that I had seen with you recently, you talked about the idea that you didn't necessarily jump on the bandwagon of digital.
The opposite.
You did jump on the bandwagon.
No, the opposite of jumping on the bandwagon is not to follow the crowd.
You did not, let me rephrase, back up. I saw an interview you have recently, and you had mentioned that when the digital revolution sort of surfaced in media companies, you did not get involved right away. And I'm wondering, what was your thinking behind that? Because a lot of the other newspapers did.
They all did.
And it didn't work out well.
We're the only ones who didn't.
And so,
and by we, it's our group, which is the LA, San Diego, and Orange County Business Journals. We didn't do what the entire rest of the industry did. And the way we didn't do it is the particulars of how we didn't do it, we don't let people subscribe to our content, which is enterprise journalism. It's exclusive content. You can't get it anywhere else. We don't let you access this. There's a daily email, but that's not this content. That's press released stuff. You must subscribe to it in print. Why? Why does that make sense? Because the marketplace will give you only pennies for a digital reader versus give you $1 for a print reader. So why would I want to migrate my readers from print to digital? I'm aware that digital advertising is the biggest segment of advertising in the history of mankind, but that's called Google, Facebook, and Amazon. They've got a $5 trillion valuation if you combine them, because they are the dominant seller of digital advertising. I don't know what the number is. It's in the magnitude of 2/3 of all digital advertising are those three companies. Then there's another 100 companies, maybe 200, that might add another 10%. And they got a good business. The other has like one of the world's greatest businesses. And for everyone else, it's a crummy business. Digital advertising is just a crummy business. It does not generate, the pennies you get from digital advertising doesn't add up. It's not enough to pay for journalists. And I like journalists. So I want to make enough revenue so we can have these cover apps. This one's Hogue. We got, the really great organizations that want to do the cover apps. Lugano Diamonds has done our cover apps, and they've had tremendous expansion in their business in the years they've been running our cover apps. And we can command a lot of money for that. You can't command anything like the rate we get for our cover apps, which work. That's why it commands the rate from a digital ad. Not from a legacy media. It's different if you have an algorithm that's serving up, the exact right person who's just in the right now. Their car lease is up, and so they'll look at that car ad, or they're shopping for something and they see an Amazon ad for the exact thing they're shopping for. Print media doesn't give you that kind of advantage. It's just like a random ad. You're reading about the Ukraine and you're seeing an ad for a credit card. It's like you're not going to pay attention to it.
I want to explain for our audience that when you talk about the cover up, you mean there are advertisers who want the front cover and the back cover?
Well, it's just, yeah.
Or just the front?
Yeah, so here's our front page.
Right.
And it covers the front page.
Right.
And so.
And the advertisers pay a lot of money to be on the front or the cover wrap.
These are sitting on people's desks all over Orange County. The people who run Orange County, and you're seeing the messaging about how Hogue, top 1% maternity care nationwide. You're getting that message. Yeah. And so, yeah, it registers. Yeah. You can't not have it register, not just to the reader, but to anybody that just sees it laying in an office waiting room or someplace else.
And really, inside the cover of the Orange County Business Journal is some really strong business journalism writing going on there, correct? If not for that, nobody would be reading the publication.
Yes, and there's no one else really writing about the things we write about. I mean, we just wrote a second story about a 20-year-old that has raised $85 million. He's just taken over 100,000 square feet of space. He's raised money from Sequoia, the venture capital firm, which is one of the most prestigious in the country. He's still only 20. And we've written 2 stories about him now, and you're not going to see the LA Times write about him.
You mentioned digital revenue for newspapers, for legacy print publications. Clearly the advertising for the print publications is diminishing. You talk about pennies on the dollar for digital advertising. How do those models sustain themselves over the next several years?
Well, the secular decline began in, I think 2005 was the peak. So we're almost 20 years into it, and we're still making the same kind of money we made in 2005 today. So we're managing to maintain our print advertising revenue even in the face of 20 years of decline, because we don't cannibalize ourselves by moving our readers away from the print. That's what we do, and I've never been one for like industry conventions or conferences. I just stick to my knitting. I want to meet people in Orange County. I don't need to meet people all over the country that do what I do. Some of the people in our group do, and so if they have some good ideas, it comes to us in monthly publisher meetings where they go, hey, a lot of these guys are finding success doing that. I look at other business journals to see what they're doing. But I think you get a group think when you go to those things, and everyone's going to say, your kids are going to just make fun of you, that you just got your head in the ground, you're an ostrich, you're going to be a dinosaur, and you just don't get it, that the world's gone digital. Well, there was a bunch of companies that went digital, but you're not them, and you can't become them. You don't offer what Facebook and Amazon and Google offer. They're disruptors, but you're not going to become them just because you compete with them. You compete with them with your hands tied behind your back. It's not a level playing field competing with those guys. And so you're going to get pennies. You're going to get scraps. That's what's happened. That's why there's no money for journalism, and that's why daily newspapers are dying, and that's why I see the only possible road out is philanthropic money. And I can see that it could happen.
Let's talk about that, because I agree, right? I agree that there's an opportunity for philanthropic money to come in and help sort of sustain some of the business models that exist out there. And that may be what's required in order to maintain a robust media presence for the community, in specifically Orange County. That model works if the money's there to support it, and it's a hard, probably, path to travel down year after year after year after
Right, we'll see how that goes. Like Jeff Bezos is doing it. He's a little upset that the losses started to approach $100 million a year, but I think they're gonna figure it out.
Do you see somebody in the community currently who's got the
Or
vision?
I can't out somebody, I mean.
No, not that has the vision
I don't,
for something creative that may lead.
there's a lot of wonderful people here, and some of them actually put together a group to buy the register before Alden Global ended up with it, but they just came in just like a day late
That's just
with
what
their
about the
bid
Jim
in the
Doty,
bankruptcy.
the Jim Doty group?
Yeah. So the kind of people that were in that group are the kind of people I'm talking about. But I don't think any of them would appreciate if I named them. They don't want to have
Fair enough.
people like emailing them to say, could you buy the register?
Yeah, that makes sense. But you're saying that you believe there are people in
Yes.
the community who would be in a position to support a more
In every
robust.
community, yeah. I think there's people that care.
There could be criticism of an organization that's supported by philanthropic money, that this is an influence on the editorial coverage. To those individuals, how do you respond?
Wake up. I mean, the world is not a perfect place. That is, so naively Pollyannish. There's always influences. There's influences, obviously. Look at all the great daily newspapers. They're all run by one of the wealthiest families in all of those places. In the days that daily newspapers were the greatest, they were run by the people that, today's social progressives would see as the ultimate evil influence, and yet they did great work. They didn't always do great work, but the heyday of daily newspapers were under that kind of management. There's biases everywhere. It's just a knee-jerk thing for journalists to see the ownership as the scariest bias. How about the bias of this person gives you access and how you'll cover them? How about the bias of your own politics? There's so many biases that come into play. We're human. There's going to be biases. I don't think certainly people giving money to support the institution, not even owning it, I see that as a trivial concern.
At OC World, we've only been around maybe 2.5 years right now, and we have a very good foundation of philanthropic and private funds that have come in to support us. This is very public on our website and stuff. It includes Wells Fargo Bank, University of California, Irvine, Orange County Community Foundation, Keith and Judy Swain Family Foundation, Santiago College, and it really has helped us create a reputation within the community just by virtue of our association with these stellar groups, right? And I made it clear from the beginning, and I hold to the day today, that no one has ever once paid us to come on our show, right? I had to make that clear.
I'm the first?
Yeah, you're the first. But we had to make that clear because we did not want to put that reputation into the community that we were just being paid for people's PR coverage. That's not what we're about, right?
Yeah, it's kind of sad that that's become, outside of the Business Journal and daily newspapers, that's become pretty much all the other media you get. I mean, people are the magazines that people are getting at home. Not everyone, but most of them. I mean, when you see something in the magazine of, fabulous females, those people paid to be in the fabulous females. Right. You see some of the local magazines that people are getting, people are paying for the front cover. I mean, people pay for our front cover, but no one's mistaken this for a story or that our editors selected this. But, that's what's going on in the industry now, because you can make money from doing that, and with advertising down for all print media, not just daily newspapers, not just business journals. And by the way, while we're thriving, other business journals around the country are also going the way of daily newspapers. They're getting very, very thin. Even Crane's Business Chicago, if you look at the print, and that was always the most successful one. and they're doing the best digitally, but their revenues are down dramatically from where they used to be, and the print product could be as little as 20, 24 pages now.
Do you mind talking about sort of the award ceremonies you do
Yeah.
and how that model works into, because from what I've seen, those are hugely popular in the community.
Yes.
I think it's because people love the idea of an award.
Yes.
Number two, I think they like seeing their picture in the magazine.
Yes.
And you put on a great program for 600, 800, I don't know how many people at these events. How does that model work into what you're doing as a journalist in a print publication?
It says under the masthead, the community of business. So one of the ways we create a community and all the benefits that come with people connecting, especially in person, is to put on events. So we were very early in this market with making events a big part of our business model, no different than business journals all over the country. In fact, as business journals in other markets are showing advertising revenue decline because they're digital first, the events have become an even more important source of their revenue for them. But I think we're doing as well or better with our events. It's just that it represents a much smaller percentage because we're still very successful in the traditional model of print media, which is a great model. We've just proven that the traditional model continues to work if you stick to it and have the right elements. It can work. It has worked for us. The events, though, are extraordinary and very proud of them. So the women's event draws close to 800 people, but it's not just the women. The CFO event draws 700, 800 people. And some of our events, the other events, not as many, but they're all very robust. And so we have sponsors, and they are leading law firms and accounting firms and bankers and other people who provide services. And we'll have 6, 8, 10, 14 sponsors, and they're all judges. So it's not like one guy's getting his client to win, because we sit around this table, and it's like you have to, and people get to interview as many as they want, and they do, and they make the case, and we all just go around the table till we have 5 winners. I came here in 1990 to this existing publication, which was amongst the least successful business journals in the United States in 1990. It had only really started as a weekly in 1989, so I got there almost at the beginning. The ownership group had a publisher before me, and they got the quality of and the level of resources up, and I came in a situation where now I had to get the revenues to match that and then to exceed that. But there were events, I just mentioned the family-owned business program. Somehow we made that one succeed. But the women's events, they're in probably every market. General counsel, I think we're unusual. Only a few markets have it. CFO, I think more have it. Entrepreneur, I think more of those. And our events are all award programs. And other markets do other kinds of events. But I find this model works best for us. Like our CFO program, it's the elite of the financial community are there. The top accounting firms are there. The top CFOs are there. There's no firms that think they're too cool for it. Our general counsel event, from Anduril to Pimco to Edwards, Broadcom, Taco Bell. I mean, just the top of the top of Orange County's business community. They participate because our events have credibility, and it's a big life experience for someone to be recognized as one of the top 5 general counsel, or to be one of the 5 top entrepreneurs or family-owned businesses. It's a life event. It's a big deal. And so I love being able to make that experience happen for people.
And the community embraces it. It really does.
And we don't tell the winners in advance. Mm-hmm. So you get the surprise, you get the excitement, and you don't get sort of the standard, I want to thank all these people, and just there's kind of a book on what you're supposed to say at those things. If you know in advance, it's going to be dull. But we have the excitement that our winners don't know in advance.
I think I had mentioned to you last time I saw you at that event that we recently interviewed Mike Hara, and he was awarded Entrepreneur of the Year. And that was my first question for him, and I'll tell you why. And I come out with him on stage because it's very heartfelt. He's on stage. You just mentioned, and it's a heartfelt sort of speech. And somebody came up and talked a little bit about him and his background and why he's the Entrepreneur of the Year, and we talked about that.
One of the sponsors introduces him.
Yeah.
One of the judges.
Yeah, and I asked him right away about that, and I had a picture of you with him and a couple other things. And the reason I did that, quite honestly, Richard, is one, we then led into a discussion about what makes Mike an entrepreneur, right? That level of discussion. But secondly, quite honestly, by opening up with that gives credibility to why we interviewed him. In other words, if I'd gone out to interview Mike Hara, I might have been criticized for giving him too much space, or people don't know who he is, but I think it was a great interview because he really kind of opened up and became very relaxed.
Yes.
But by opening up with the credibility of your organization supporting him, no one's going to criticize OC World at that point, right? Because you've already...
It's nice that, we have that kind of cachet, and then there's a halo effect from our programs. But it's really cool. And most people that win our programs, I know the Ayers Hotel chain won family-owned business many years ago, and they had the certificate we gave them in the lobby of every hotel, right? So it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And thank you for, reacting to our events with the credibility that I think that we've earned, because that's what brings in all the best nominees, because they know it's not fixed, it's not favoritism. You didn't buy your way into it, and more, that's what's out there.
What's your hope for the future of media in Orange County over the next 5 years?
I care about the community, so I would hope that we could have better coverage of our government and our politics and our, just the things that daily newspapers have always covered. I don't see a path to that except for the current owner, which is Olden Global in New York, run as best as can be run by Ron Hasse. At some point, they find a buyer that is willing to pay them a price, because it's a financial organization, which is their prerogative. They're more oriented at making money, which is a business. They see it as a business, not as a calling. And they find someone that wants to subsidize it, whether it's an individual or an organization gets created to do so. So my hope is that Orange County ultimately will have something that is subsidized or supported by philanthropy. They'll be able to provide more journalism, more reporters on the ground.